Welcome back to another episode of Becoming Limitless. So, I met my next guest fairly recently, and she quickly became one of my favorite people. You'll see why in a minute. So, Sana Banna is a functional health practitioner, nurse by training, and she just finished her master's in public health. And once you hear her talk, you'll see the sort of value that she brings to this space in well-being and wellness and functional medicine in general. Welcome, Sana.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for agreeing to do
Thank
this. I'm so happy that you're here because when we met for the first time, we immediately click about all sorts of things that we kind of do on a day-to-day basis.
Sure.
And I think your approach and your hunger for knowledge is incredible. Like, you know this stuff better than most people that I've met. And that's why I'm really happy to be with you, because I think there's a lot that I could learn from you. And I think there's a lot that people can learn from you. So there are three things that I would like to talk to you about today. One, as a nurse, and I would like to explore this a little bit because when it comes to well-being, it takes a village, right?
Right.
It's not just your doctor that you go to, that traditional approach. Most people are now aware it has a place, and it has a place in well-being, but it's not the end all. There are many other things. Your PT, your nutritionist, your yoga instructor, your family, your functional practitioner, all of these play a role, your society and so on, everything plays a role in your well-being. So nurses have an incredible role, and I think they bring a specific perspective. I don't know if I told you, maybe I mentioned it to you, but I'm working on a course with the Geneva College of Longevity Science where we're certifying people that are non-physicians. Nurses, practitioners, PTs, all of that, to have I hate that word, but longevity training in order to do more preventative stuff rather than after the fact. So nurses is one. I would love to hear your point of view of how nurses can contribute to the well-being of all of us. The other is, you have an interesting take on blood panels.
Yes.
I'd love to hear that from you too. And then the third, I want for you to give us a little bit more information on the BAHI method, or the BAHI Protocol. It's something that I've been using for a little bit, and I think it's amazing. We will tell people about it a little bit later on. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Sana, first.
So basically, I started my career as a nurse. I worked specifically with oncology patients, cancer patients. I think this is where my drive with the functional medicine started, because I've seen a lot of people while working in the oncology units and the medical surgical units that come to the hospital when the crisis already happened,
right,
or they've been on pills for a very long time. So the interventions always come at a later stage.
Right.
And this is where my drive came to know, like, how can we prevent this? How can we help people before the crisis actually happen? And I think functional medicine gave me the tools or answers for this, because it changed my role from being someone who responds to illness to someone who can work on early and preventing it by addressing the root causes of diseases or optimizing performance in general.
How awesome it is to actually make that shift. And I remember, my parents being sick, and I grew up for a short period of time in Lebanon. You know how it is there with healthcare access, and everyone lives in and out of hospitals there.
Yeah.
Like, it's ridiculous how well the healthcare system does there, and most of it is private. So people spend a lot of money on after the fact stuff. So by shifting that state of mind, everything changes.
Right. You unlearn everything.
Right, yeah. And but change is always so difficult. I still face it on a daily basis, and I know that most likely you do too, is that it doesn't compute yet with people. When you say, that we do this so the future doesn't happen, or something terrible does not happen in the future, it doesn't compute. I'll deal with it when it happens. But when you're driving, you don't look for an accident, and you don't wait for the accident to happen for you to try to avoid it, and so on. Like, there's so many other aspects of life, but when it comes to the foundation of everything that we do, we throw caution to the wind, and we say, why do something that could possibly prevent me from being whatever, and it could be anything really, something as simple as sleep or whatever. So it's awesome. More and more people are making that shift with obviously your help and many people in the space. But I think a lot more is needed. 100%. Do you feel that there's also a little bit of resistance when you work with people?
Yes. So most of the people, I think they lack someone who can take care of them, because like when they visit a doctor or visit a nutritionist, the care ends there. Yeah. Most of the time. So they would need someone like to hold their hand throughout the journey and lead them through their protocols in a way that is not complicated. So I think this is where the role of a health coach comes in, to hold the clients or the patients accountable and make sure they are being compliant to their protocol in a way that's less complex than the medical field in general.
And then there's a superiority there, right? So generally a physician will tell you, oh, I know what I'm doing. Like, you don't need to understand what's going on. I know what I understand. And that's really, your health is your responsibility. And that's the main shift that is happening right now, is that people are taking responsibility of their own health. They're learning more, they're understanding more, they know what is positive and what is not. They're making the right choices. They understand that marketing plays a major role in their lack of health, and so on. So the shift is definitely happening. It's just maybe not as quick as you and I would like to see it, right?
Yeah, and I think specifically for nurses, because we are trained in a way where we are patients' advocates, right? So we are always the first to notice subtle changes in any condition.
Right.
And we are the first people to listen when someone says something doesn't feel right, and you are the one to communicate it with the other professionals. And that's why I think nurses are the best people trained to become health coaches, not only as caregivers, but as educators and as guides for people's health journey.
They're unsung heroes.
Yeah.
And the stuff that they do is incredible, and it's always behind the scenes.
Right. Especially in our region, they're a bit underestimated. This has changed, might have changed slightly since COVID. They become more valued and more seen, but we still need them to be more empowered within the healthcare system, because they are actually the glue between all healthcare professionals, where they are the best people to communicate with clients and patients within the healthcare settings and outside of it.
And they're able to provide so much more value if they move into these other fields too. They could bring so much more to society, to, I don't like to call them patients because of what that word means, but for clients, right, for human beings. So truly, I am incredibly privileged to have someone speak on behalf of nurses and all of what they do on a day-to-day basis, and the importance, the sympathy, the bedside manner, the kindness. It takes a the empathy. As well. It takes a very special person to become a nurse. It is not something that you fall into. You're born to be a nurse. It's like you're born to be a teacher. It's a vocation rather than just something that you do. So for those people to become also with greater reach, to become a health coach, for example, I think that would be phenomenal, and I stand by you by that. So it's incredible.
And I hope this brings some kind of inspiration to nurses, because as I see, like, sometimes they think they are limited within the bedside.
Right.
But however, there are many opportunities where they can actually bring change, and being patient's advocate is what we really advocate for within the healthcare practitioners.
We would definitely shout it off rooftops, and I'll make sure that that sort of thing is made clear also. And the course we'll see what we can do specifically for nurses to try to offer some added value with the college. So I'm with you 100%. So tell me about the blood panel and the stuff that people see, the people that miss. What do you look for specifically when you look at someone's blood panel yourself?
Yeah, I always tell the clients to take their blood work, like a complete blood panel, as their dashboard. So it's often like when we do blood panels,
That's so interesting. Look at your blood work as a dashboard. That's amazing.
It's a pattern. It's the foundation of your health, or it's as a benchmark of your health.
But it's also a snapshot, right?
Right.
Because most people think if I've done a blood test last year or 6 months ago, I've done it. It's done. It's not a pass or fail test. It's not like your driving test. You do it once and you move on. It's a snapshot of that moment.
100%.
Right?
That's why it's more of a dashboard.
Right.
And you need to do it at least twice per year in order to follow up on patterns, changes, and if you're looking for optimization in general. And I think the most important part is when we look at the optimal ranges rather than the lab ranges, because something in the lab ranges can turn out to be normal, however, it's not optimal.
Right.
And you see people walking around with symptoms, and they go to doctors and they do the lab tests and everything turns out to be normal, but then they still feel unwell and they still feel unheard and they still have the symptoms. So when we look at, in the functional medicine approach, when we look at the optimal ranges, we need to see how people can actually function at a level where they have more energy, they have more focus, they feel better even about themselves. So for example, let's say a woman with a low ferritin levels of 20s, in the lab ranges, they're normal, but they're not optimal in the functional ranges. So that means lower energy, hair loss, even low focus, right? So this comparison between the optimal ranges and the lab ranges is where the story actually begins, because you can be able to foresee a problem before it happens. You can actually, speaking of prevention, you can actually prevent patterns from happening in the future, whether it has to do with blood sugar dysregulation, whether it has to do with vitamins and minerals deficiencies, or even hormonal imbalances.
Right.
And that's why I feel like everyone should give more attention to the blood work, because you can't believe from a single blood work how much you can see indirect signs of gut health issues, of toxicities, of hormonal imbalances, and much more, before we move into more of the functional lab testings that are more complicated and that you can do them at a later stage. So it should be the foundation of everyone.
I'm going to ask you about like 2 or 3, like if you put like the top 3 that you would look at in a minute, but I need to repeat something you said, because I think it's super important. And it explains the current healthcare approach that we have. If it's not broken, then it's okay. This is not the right approach when you're talking about health.
Yeah.
So when you talk about optimal ranges, is that, yes, something is not broken, but it needs to be working perfectly in order to build on that program. But the current thought process, if it's okay, if it's not broken, that means it's okay. That's not a good definition. Because the system is built, I only deal with broken things. If you are okay, there's nothing I could do for you. I don't have the tools, I don't have the knowledge, the approach to say, let's optimize this so it remains preventative for the future. Instead of saying, it's not broken, that means there's nothing I could do for you.
100%.
So I only deal with broken stuff. So that's the system that we live with right now, unfortunately, for many reasons. Some are justified, some are not justified. The change is happening, it's taking time. And obviously with pharma involved and legacy healthcare systems and insurance. It's a very, very complicated landscape. But that is one of the most perfect explanations to how a current healthcare professional looks at results, that if it's not broken, it means it's okay. That's the old. While someone like yourself, a progressive, preventative coach, would look at it and say, it's not optimal. That means we need to be doing something about it.
Right.
So what a massive difference in that scale, right? So top 3 on your C panel. You've given someone a test to do the full panel. And what are the top 3? Where does your attention go first?
Yeah, so basically, I think there's something that's very overlooked within the conventional labs, which is the micronutrient deficiencies, right?
Okay.
So when we talk about vitamin D, B12, zinc, copper, magnesium, all of these, the practitioners or the conventional practitioners, they don't give them much attention unless they are very deficient in a way. And for me, I think they're very important because they would give an idea or a clue about how can you optimize health, right? So many people can come with vitamin B12 in the 200s, let's say, levels, and they're still within the normal lab ranges. However, they're not optimal. They can be affecting your sleep. They can be affecting your nervous
your
system
energy
function,
and so much,
and so much more.
Yeah.
So we don't necessarily use them to diagnose someone with a certain, let's say, illness, but it's used for optimization. Even for athletes, it's very important for optimal recovery. The other thing I would think of is which I see it very common, is the thyroid markers.
Yes.
So whenever like someone goes with low energy, fatigue, hair loss, many thyroid symptoms, they go to a doctor. The first test they do is the TSH.
Yes.
So okay, the TSH might turn out to be normal, but what about free T3 and free T4? So how about you might be functioning normally in terms of the thyroid stimulating hormone, but there's a conversion issue happening there that you can actually optimize it.
Do something about it.
The third thing I would look at, and I always mention it, is especially for women, is the ferritin.
Yes.
Because a 20 ferritin is normal in the lab ranges, but it could be contributing or starting to contribute to many symptoms.
Yes.
So some women feel better with 50s and above.
Yes.
So of course we have to compare it with other inflammation markers and other
it's a bigger
iron
picture,
panels.
right?
Right.
Yes.
So I think a complete blood panel should cover the sugar profile, liver profile, kidneys, hormones, vitamins and minerals, and of course the CBCDs, because you have to look at the body as a whole and the systems as a whole, and get the snapshot that you
the dashboard that you mentioned. Yeah. So it's one system. We tend to put them in compartments as if they don't communicate with each other. Everything works together in a magical, amazing way. It's miraculous the way the body is so resilient and yet so fragile at the same time. And especially with women, you definitely covered that incredibly well. And what happens normally, what I see of any clients that I work with, specifically women with low ferritin, is that their doctor at some point end up kind of, IV drip, like immediate, like, they've seen it coming, but they kind of say, because it is within the okay range, I don't need to do anything about it until it becomes an issue.
Right.
And then we load them with that, And then I've seen people on cycles where they get loaded and then it goes back into the normal range.
Yeah, because we're not solving the root cause, which could be malabsorption, it could be gut issues, it could be toxicities. So yeah, I mean, like, we're always used in the healthcare setting to just focus on symptoms, treatment. We never ask the why. The why is the most important. And I feel most of our clients, especially the clients that I see or I've worked with before, they don't feel heard. They don't feel seen because simply their lab test says it's normal.
Yes.
Or simply because their scan or colonoscopy or endoscopy, it doesn't show any structural changes. So this is where like the functional approach or the current revolutionary approach comes to give people like an answer, or let's say some kind of comfort in their healthcare journey.
And then there's also that unspoken feeling of, because your physician has told you something, who am I to like speak out, you know? If he says it's okay or she says it's okay, who am I to say? And that's another aspect of functional approach, is that the client is as much of part of the journey as anyone who's involved in the well-being journey for that person. And in many ways, the client is also contributing to your own well-being, you know, because the way you react to them, their stress levels, the energy exchange, when they feel better, it helps your own well-being. And so when they're not, it affects your own well-being. So there's this constant, we could speak about that forever, but I'm really keen to hear about the BAHI Protocol.
Yes.
So it's one of my favorite. I won't tell you which one that is part of the protocol, but I'd love to hear from you why you like it so much and what it is.
Yeah, so BAHI Protocol is the core of our protocols at Precision Health. It is about the bioactive healing interventions, or in other words, it's an abbreviation for blood circulation, antioxidant, hormonal balance, and immunity. It actually constitutes of 4 therapies or modalities that are evidence-based and based on many publications, such as the PMF or the sonic wave vibration, the hyperbaric oxygen, red light therapy, and the hydrogen inhalation therapy. The idea of having all of these therapies together under the BAHI protocol is to improve healing process in the body. So that's by improving oxygen delivery, reducing inflammation, increasing antioxidant power, and at the same time improving healing in general. The thing about BAHI is that it works for everyone, because we all know like wellness is a spectrum, so it can be at anywhere in the spectrum. So whether you're feeling ill or you're feeling okay and you want to feel better, BAHI can actually help you with that.
Right.
And it's not just a wellness menu. It is a protocol that's evidence-based. And when we say evidence, because we know nowadays, like everyone is jumping into luxurious wellness and into healing protocols and different types of modalities. But what we need is actually, is it based on science?
Right.
Is it based on publications or not? And when it comes to the BAHI protocol specifically, it is backed up by many publications, and I think that's what makes it like really powerful. And it's also data driven. So we actually look for inflammation markers, we look for oxidative stress, we look for nutrient status before putting someone on a BAHI treatment, because each of these treatments has its own purpose, and you need to look at these markers before and after, so you can see actually is it working or not, to see the change. So you're able to prove how much these treatments are actually beneficial.
And also the client themselves tells you too, like they feel a major difference afterwards. What would a typical BAHI protocol look like? How much time would a person or a client spend in each of these?
Yeah, so basically it's around 1 hour, 30 minutes. So you have 10 minutes on the sonic wave vibration. That's what makes it perfect for blood circulation, pre-workout.
That's the PEMF, you mean?
Right.
The pulse electromagnetic field.
100%. And the post-workout. And it's actually also for lazy people who don't like to go and do an aerobic exercise, for example. And then we put the clients in the hyperbaric oxygen for 30 to 45 minutes. Of course, the pressure depends on each individual and depends on the goals. And the third thing is the red light therapy, which is a 20-minute session. And I think here the red light therapy, because now it's very common and we see it a lot, especially now in Dubai, the frequency of the red light therapy is very important.
Right.
Because you may know light works in an optical window. Too much light is not good and too little is not good.
Right.
So there's specific frequency that works on each condition. And we use the red light therapy alongside with the hydrogen inhalation therapy.
So they inhale molecular hydrogen at the same time.
100%. So to
you're
enhance
talking
the
about the nanometer spectrum of the waves of the light, right? So the visible and the not visible, the one that works on the skin and the deep. We could do a whole session on that later on. Like
100%.
we'll do another episode on like red light and break these down. But yeah, you made a very important point on red light. Is that most people don't really understand it and don't understand what that means. And what baffles people also is that you could buy one thing for a very low price and you could buy something that looks almost exactly the same for 10 times that price. And there's no real explanation of the difference in that. So I think it's because it's an emerging thing and more people are being aware of it. But
I think it's the most studied in terms of the healing modalities.
Yes.
Like you can see hundreds of thousands of publications about the effect.
Yes. Well, because it's decades old, right? I mean, NASA took it up to the moon. Like it's not something that has happened since COVID.
Right.
Because most people think this is a completely new thing. Hospitals and dentists and whatever have been using it for decades after surgery to increase recovery and other stuff like that. And hydrogen is also always known as the super antioxidant, lightest, smallest in the universe, or what we know, and yet is the most powerful antioxidant. What fascinates me about hydrogen, I'm confusing you now, you don't know which one is my favorite. But yeah, so hydrogen, what I love about it is that it doesn't tackle all the free radicals, it tackles the ones that are most harmful for you.
Right.
And therefore, it is the most useful antioxidant you could do. What is still not super clear anywhere is how much, how often, for which people. You have general guidelines, but sometimes I feel when I'm using hydrogen inhalation or water or whatever form, I feel that it's really helping me, and other times I feel
it doesn't.
Not so much. Because again, the whole system needs to work together, right? So that's a really cool protocol. And I think you use it fairly frequently at Precision Health,
yes,
right?
it is the core of our
really
treatment.
Cool.
The only difference would be on how to tailor it based on each individual. As I mentioned before, because we test for all of these markers.
Yes.
So the sequence would differ,
yes.
and also the frequency would differ.
And the amount that you spend
exactly.
on each one, yeah.
And speaking like of hydrogen, I think one of the most powerful things that we do is we measure the oxidative stress before and after. And this would actually tell us like how much we need to use the hydrogen for.
What do you use for that? You oligoscan?
No, we have our own lab tests. It's called OxyChex Plus. So this one,
so it measures through blood?
Yes, it's through blood. It measures the reactive oxidative species in comparison with the antioxidant power and the oxidative balance and the oxidized cholesterol. And our R&D team have published a study last year about the power of hydrogen in reducing the oxidative stress. And it found out like by at least from one session, you can bring it down by 35%.
Yeah.
At least. And I've seen like many people benefiting from it for sleeping.
Yes.
Because you've seen people on CPAP who were able to get rid of the CPAP and use hydrogen instead before sleep.
And the hyperbaric chamber helps with that too.
Exactly.
Also red light helps with that.
100%.
So it's all intertwined, so they all have their benefit and most of them overlap. And I think the most important thing is to think of them as therapies and not as medicine.
Right.
So most people, they go into the hyperbaric chamber and they come out thinking, I'm going to come out like a different person,
Yeah.
It's a therapy. It's something you have to stick with. It's the same as how illness or degeneration happens in the body. It happens over time. It's not instant. The healing and regenerative aspect of your well-being journey also happens over time. It's So if you want to, you could think about it. The disease or degeneration is an untherapeutic, if you like. It's like the opposite of being in a therapy, while getting healthy is going through a therapy. I don't know if there's such a word of like not therapeutic. You know what I mean? Like an opposite of it.
It needs a complete blood cycle.
It's like a reversal of it. Yeah.
They always think, for people who are looking for a quick fix, this kind of approach wouldn't work with them, because they need to understand like healing is a journey.
Yes.
And the journey is tough, it's hard, it's confusing. It might make them feel worse before they even get better.
Always.
But yes, but if you are committed to it, at least for 3 months, which is the complete blood cycle, then you would start seeing the changes. And of course, it's very individualized. Like some people take 3 months, some people take even 6 months, and some take years. It all depends on the condition.
And their lifestyle and their mental health and their environment and their stress levels and all sorts of that. This is amazing. Like it's like usual. You and I, when we start talking, like we can talk forever. So this has been amazing. Thank you so much for doing this and for agreeing to do this with me. And I hope we could do a lot more and break down some more things in the future. So thank you again.
Thank you for having me.
I appreciate it. Here you go, guys. Another awesome piece of content from amazing people that are local, that speak for us. Thank you for joining, and I look forward to seeing you next time.